Okay, so what I'm going to try to do right now is address the two main questions with respect to creating section view drawings in AutoCAD. The first one is, how do we create the section lines? Okay, and the second one is, how do we create the cutting plane line with arrows? Okay, now section lines are in AutoCAD, they're referred to as hatching or hatch lines. And they're created with the hatch command. Okay, and the hatch command is right up here in the draw menu. Okay, I'm hovering over it, and that's the hatch command. The cutting plane line arrow is a little bit more difficult because AutoCAD does not have a command that creates cutting plane lines. So we're going to have to manually create them. This has been how AutoCAD operates since I've started using AutoCAD, so it's nothing new. And we've always had to create our cutting plane lines with the arrows. So I'll take you through those. Those are the main things that we want to focus on with this video. Creating the section or the hatch lines, and then creating the cutting plane layers, okay, or the cutting plane line. So what I have here is kind of an example object. I purposely made it pretty simple so that it's easy to understand. And so we have a top view here and a front view, okay? And then over here, what I've created is just a three-dimensional view, an isometric view of this object, so that you can more clearly, easily understand what this object is. Okay, so it's basically a rectangular box with a cylinder on top, right, and a hole going through the whole thing. Okay, so a hole going from top to bottom. Right. So in the top view, you see that here. In the front view, you see the hidden line for the hole going through the object. And then you also see a hidden line for the back surface. That's this back surface back here, or back here. Right? And so what we want to do with this is we want to show this as a section view. We're going to replace the front view with a section view. And in so doing, we're also going to create a cutting plane line showing you where we make the cut. And then we're going to add section lines or hatch lines to this. Okay. So first, let's really try to understand physically how the object is cut. Okay. Now, this is not anything that you actually do in AutoCAD, what I'm about to show you. This is just visually, or in your imagination, how you would think about the section view. So I'm going to turn on my cutting plane layer, right? And the cutting plane layer here is showing you where we're making our cut. Okay, so this line, think of this line as like basically where the knife or the saw blade is going to slice through the object. Right, so it's going to slice right through the object like that. I can turn on my construction layer and show you like that, so you get a better idea of where that's coming through and slicing the object. When we slice the object, and remember, this is in your mind's eye, when we're slicing the object, we're going to separate it into two halves like this, okay? We're going to keep one side of this side. Now, why are we keeping that side? Because that's the side that we're going to be interested in looking at so that we can see the inside. So notice, if we're looking at this object from the bottom left, right, and viewing it this way, this view is going to show us the inside. If we look at it from the bottom left and look at this side, well, it doesn't really show us the inside. Okay, so this part of the object we're going to then throw away, and we're going to keep this side of the object. But we also need to show where the object is solid, right? Where there's solid material. So if this is made out of wood or metal or whatever, where is the solid metal material, right? How do we differentiate the solid part from the whole? And I'll show you this by turning on my section layer, right? And so my section lines are shown where the object is solid, okay? So now what we basically have to do is we have to replicate this view of our object orthographically right here. Okay, and we also have to represent our cutting point line up on the top, because the cutting point line is going to show us where we make our cut. Okay, so let's do the easiest one first, and that is to do the section lines. Okay, or as AutoCAD refers to them, our hatch lines. And we're going to use the hatch command, which is right here. But before we do that, I want to change these lines. So some of these lines are going to become visible lines because they're visible now that I'm cutting into them, and that's these two lines right here. So I'm going to change those to visible. Okay. And then I'm also going to erase this hidden line. And the reason why I'm erasing it is because, one, it's not visible when we make our cut. Okay, so if I scroll over here now, let's go over here. That back surface is still hidden behind the cut. Right? And there's a rule in AutoCAD, excuse me, there's not a rule in AutoCAD. There's a rule in section views that says you should omit hidden lines in section views. So that hidden line is going to go bye-bye. All right. So here's our cut object, and now we need to show where the solid material is. So I'm going to change my layer to the section layer because we want our hatch lines or section lines to be put on the section layer. Right? This is a thin, continuous line weight layer. Right? So we go to section, and now we're going to go to the hatch command, and I'm going to click on the hatch command there. And it's going to ask us to pick an internal point. And what it's asking us to do is pick inside the boundary of the area we want to put the section lines or the hatch lines. Now you'll notice across the top, the ribbon changed now to the hatch creation ribbon. And I'm going to talk about that in a second. Basically, we don't have to mess with that initially. We can pick the internal point, and right now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to move inside the object and see how I haven't clicked anything yet. So see how it's kind of giving me an update. It's kind of saying, hey, if you click now, this is what you're going to get. So I'm going to click here, and I'm also going to go and click right here because I want these two sides to have section lines. Right? Now that's done. Right? I'm done picking my internal points, but I'm not done with the hatch yet. So what I see is that what I need to adjust is the spacing between the lines and the angle. Okay, so the angle right now is shown as basically 45 degrees, right? But up here in the hatch creation ribbon, it's showing my angle is 0 degrees. So this is what AutoCAD considers 0 degrees. And in fact, this is perfect for what we want to do. Generally speaking, you want your hatching angle to be either this direction, 45 degrees, or the opposite direction, 45 degrees. Or in terms of the hatch angle, you want it to be 0 or, and I'm going to change this to 90 or 90. Now you see how that changed? Okay, it went the other direction. Now I'm going to change this back to 0 because 0 is fine for this. And click in there. There we go. Now I do want to change the spacing because I don't like the spacing. I think the spacing is a little bit wide here. So I'm going to change this. Right now it's 1. So you see where I went into this dialog box right here. Right now it's 1. I'm going to try 0.5. So I'm just going to type in 0.5, and it should, once I click in there, it tells me, you know, that's a little bit too close together. So I'm going to go one more, and I'm going to type in 0.75. Right. Now on this, you'll notice that the hatch pattern that I've selected, I should have mentioned this earlier, but it came up correctly by default. The hatch pattern that we always want to use is ANSI 31. Right? So if you're on ANSI 32, see how that's slightly different. We don't want that. ANSI 31, that's what we want. Certainly not angle, certainly not solid. We want ANSI 31, so we choose ANSI 31. By the way, ANSI stands for American National Standards Institute pattern number 31. Right? And that's the standard pattern. So I have my pattern selected. I have my angle set at 0 degrees, which looks like this. I have my hatching scale set to 0.75. I have it on associative, which is exactly what I want. I want my hatching associative. And now I'm going to click on the check mark here to close the hatch creation dialog box. And then that's it. Okay. Now, one of the things with section lines or hatch lines is that they are an associative object. So now notice when I move over it, the whole hatch is highlighted. So I can't trim out the hatch. I can't erase one line. I have to erase everything or nothing. Okay. And that's exactly how we want it. Okay. So that's the section lines done. So now let's move up to the cutting plane line. Right. This is going to be a little bit more challenging because we really have to get in there and manually create the line. Okay. So the first thing that I want to do is I want to get the basic line, the main part of the line in there. Okay. And the main part of the line is going to be from the midpoint here across through the center to the midpoint here. Now, one of the things I also want to do is I want to get rid of this center mark. Now, you see the center mark is an associative object too. Everything is selected when I pick it. So I can't really erase part of it. So I'm just going to click on that and hit delete. Right. Don't worry, we'll put in, a center line, a vertical one. So what I don't want is I don't want my cutting plane line and my center line to be lying right on top of each other. That's bad practice. Two lines on top of each other. So I'm going to change my layer to the cutting plane layer. I'm going to go to the line command. I'm going to come over here and I'm going to type in object snap midpoint. Type in mid, hit enter. I'm going to choose that midpoint. I'm going to come straight across like that and then go over. I'm going to hit escape. Right. So I got that part in there. Now I want my arrows. All right. Now here's where it gets a little bit tricky. Right. I keep waiting. I've been using AutoCAD for probably 30 some years. I started using it in 1986 in my intro to drafting class at the University of Florida. And we were the first class to ever use AutoCAD in a classroom setting like that. So I've been using it since 1986. And they have not changed how you create your cutting plane arrows. It's very frustrating, but here you go. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the dimension leader. Okay. So I'm on the cutting plane layer. All right. I'm going to go to annotate. And I'm going to go to multi-leader. All right. And you can ignore this. Just say okay. And I want my arrows for this object to be pointed upwards. Right? And that has to do with my direction of sight for my section view just below this. Right? And you can watch the lecture video to explain that more in detail there. But basically, I'm going to click up here and I'm going to go straight down. And I'm going to make sure that I'm going down long enough so that I get the arrow to show up. Right? It doesn't, I'm not trying to line it up with anything. I just want to come down a certain distance. There we go. And I click, make sure it's vertical. And now see how it's prompting me for some text because I'm in the leader command. It's saying, hey, write something. I don't want to write anything. So I'm just going to hit escape and escape out of that. So now I have this kind of bent line thingy with an arrow on the thing. And notice it's all attached together. It's all associative. So the first thing I need to do now is I need to explode it because I can't really work with it when it's all stuck together like this. So I'm going to explode it. Okay. So I'm going to go back to the home ribbon. I'm going to go to the explode command, which is just under erase. I'm going to click on that and I'm just going to click on the arrow and then hit enter and it explodes. Now, how do you know it explodes? Let me show you. So now, remember what happened before? Now look, I just have one line. I have another line. And the arrow is a separate line or a separate construction. Right? So now everything is separated, which is exactly what I want because now I can trim and extend and do all that stuff. So I want to get rid of this. That part of the line. All right. Now, according to the CAD standard, we want our cutting plane line arrows to be a half inch from the object and a 1/2 inch above or below the cutting point line. Okay? That's in your CAD standard, so you can look that up if you don't trust me. But I'm going to go to the offset command. I'm going to type in 0.5. I'm going to hit enter. I'm going to offset this line out here, and I'm going to offset this one up like that. Whoops. And it lied right on there, so I'm going to go and I'm just going to erase that because it's up there. And it's basically right at that point. Right? So that's where my arrow tip needs to go. So all I did was just make some construction lines there. So I know where that is. So now I'm going to go to the move command. Move. I'm going to grab this. I'm going to move the tip. I'll see how I can grab the tip. I'm going to move the tip right there. Right? And I'm going to erase my construction line. All right. So far, so good. Now I want to extend this out there. So I'm going to use the extend command. I'm going to pick this object, and I'm going to extend it out there. And then I'm going to trim that little bit away. So there's my cutting point line. Right? Now we're not quite done yet. All right. We actually need, and again, this is according to the CAD standard, we actually need the arrow to be twice as big as it is here, as it comes in by default. So to do that, we're going to use the scale command. So we go to scale, we select just the arrow with the window. I'm done selecting object, so I'm going to hit the enter key. I'm going to specify my base point right at the tip. I'm going to scale it by a factor of, and I'm going to type in 2. And then there we go. Right. How do we do it? How do we get this over here? Well, I'm going to do 2 things. First of all, I'll show you how to get it over there. And basically, we're going to use the mirror command. We can also use the copy command. But I'm going to show you how to mirror it, but I'm also going to do the whole object again. Because I think that the more practice, the better. So if you're going to use the mirror command, you go to mirror. We select the object. Notice I'm using a window, not a crossing window, but a window. I select the arrow tip and the vertical line. I'm going to hit the enter key. It says specify first point of the mirror line, and I'm going to pick the center of the circle right here. And then I'm going to drag it up and make sure that my mirror line is a vertical line. Notice that the arrow shows up on the right hand side. I click, it says erase source object. I say no, and then I can extend this. Right. So now I'm done. But I want to undo that. Because I want to do this again for you. Okay, so that you can see me construct it again. So we're going to go to annotate, leader. By the way, I'll do it a little bit faster this time. I'm going to pick a point and I'm going to drag it down. Click, escape. We go home. We explode. We pick that. We hit enter. We erase this line. And then we're going to offset this by 5, offset this by 0.5 inches. And then I'm going to use the move command. I'm going to move the arrow and the line so that the tip lies right on that point right there. I'll erase my construction line. I'm going to, now I need to extend this out there. So let me show you a little trick. I'm going to use the fillet command. But I'm going to use the fillet with a radius of 0. Because a fillet with a radius of 0 creates, you guessed it, a square. 90 degree corner. All right. Last but not least, I'm going to go to scale. I'm going to window this. I'm going to pick the base point there, and I'm going to scale it by a factor of 2. So there we go. Now, we're not quite done yet. Let me just finish off. We need a center line back in here. We need actually the vertical part of that center line, and that's easy to do. We don't have to use any kind of special center mark command, as you need those commands as well. So we go to center line. I'm going to go to the line command, and I'm going to pick a line from the top of the circle to the bottom of the circle. we're going to offset that by 0.06, or lengthen, I should say. So we're going to do lengthen delta. Actually, I think it's 0.09. 0.09. Sorry, 0.09. And then offset it right there. And then offset that right there. And then we're going to hit escape. We'll do a zoom extents. We'll show the whole thing. And there we go. Okay. So that is a little demo at creating the hatch lines or section lines. Make sure you use the right layer. And then making our cutting plane line. Right? Now, the cutting plane line obviously is the challenge here. Make sure you watch this video. Once you get it down, it's pretty much the same thing every time. So I'm sure that you'll get the steps down. All right. And with that, I'll see you in the next video.